Welcome to Plant-Based on Fire, the podcast that ignites your passion for plant-based businesses. Real Men Eat Plants is proud to host this show, where we shine a spotlight on the latest and greatest plant-based companies making waves in the industry. From startups to established brands, we'll explore what sets these businesses apart, what challenges they've faced, and what their vision for a more sustainable and ethical food future looks like. So if you're hungry for some fresh insights, inspiring stories, and a healthy dose of entrepreneurial spirit, then join us on Plant-Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Plant-Based on Fire, where we talk about plant-based businesses and their inspiring stories to thrive in our industry. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining us today is Nivi Jasa. He graduated from Naba University in Milan in graphic design and art direction, and he's continued his work as a designer and developing further expertise and interests in cutting-edge branding, package design, and marketing. Combined with his amazing, strong passion for food culture arising from lots of travel and work experience, he started a company called I Am Nut OK, which is a vegan cheese company based in London. So welcome, Nivi. Did I say that right? Is it Nivi or Navi?
Yeah, correct.
Nivi.
That's correct. It's Nivi, yes.
Awesome. Pleasure to have you here. Thanks
Yeah,
for joining us.
and of course, thanks for the lovely intro. It's always such a lovely experience to share our background, how we started the company, and share with more people what motivated us from the day one to start this company. So thanks for giving me this opportunity on your platform.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've got a ton of cheese questions, but before we dive into that, let's just fill in a little backstory. So tell us, what was your sort of vegan plant-based journey, and how did you become a plant-based advocate?
Absolutely. So I would say that since I started university, so around 18, 19 years old, I was already quite open-minded to try new products and different protein alternative like tofu. I used to make my own seitan at home. So I didn't have that kind of adversity like a lot of people sometimes have initially towards meat alternatives and also milk alternatives, because at the age of 20 I became I would say milk intolerant, not really lactose intolerant. I was not digesting milk, and I decided all of a sudden to just drop it. And at the time I was living in Italy, the main and easier alternative to find was soy milk. So I happily switched to it and, never really missed milk that much. Things started to change though when I moved here in London in 2016. I started dating my current partner, Angela, and she's from Los Angeles. So when we first met, she was already vegan at the time. One of the biggest challenge for me was, in order to conquer her heart, cook for her, because I wanted to impress her with my food. And I would say that understanding, especially in the first days of dating, what actually vegan meant was a bit complicated, because in my mind I'm like, fine, I'm not gonna use meat, but is it fine if I can use a bit of cheese or maybe a bit of fish? You have still those kind of struggles to really understand what the whole concept is. And then when it was made clear that it was no eggs, no fish, nothing, that became a sort of a challenge for me in order to see what can I do and can I still cook in a good and tasty way. And that opened my mind into finding out a bit more about the whole plant-based movement, whether it was because of the animals, whether it was because of the environment, health. There's so many reasons. And after watching, I think it was Cowspiracy, and then the day after, I think it was a vegan activist talking about why and how animal suffering because of the industry.
Yeah.
It was almost a no-brainer for me to immediately give up meat. And I also decided to stop any direct cheese consumption and milk and eggs and fish. So I was still
Yeah.
using for the first like maybe 3 4 months eating food I had as a byproduct, sometimes maybe eggs and cheese, but slowly removing them until a few months later, I'm like, okay, this is it. There's no cheating in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna have a bit of this and that every now and then, and I decided to fully commit. And it was when I fully committed that I then realized that vegan cheese at the time, it was 2016, 17, it wasn't really good. And I
Yeah.
got to a point where I told Angela, my partner, that I was ready to give up cheese in its entirety, like no
Hmm.
dairy, no plant-based. I'm just not happy with what's in the market, so I'm just not gonna eat cheese at all. And then she took that as a challenge because, again, coming from LA where the vegan scene is like so ahead of the time, she
Yeah.
already had amazing vegan cheese, and most of them were like made with cashew nuts. So made her own research, started making like some cheese for me, and the first time she gave me like this kind of like smoked paprika cream cheese made with like cashews. I was in love. I thought this was like one of the best vegan cheese I've ever had. And the fact that I
Great.
was able to make it at home, it was, such an inspiring thing because not only we understood that there was a huge gap in the market for like good tasty product, but being also the two of us designer, we decided to combine, both passions for food and design into building a brand that could
Hmm.
reflect on our values, that could be, something inspiring and different from what the market was offering. And that's how I'm Not Okay started.
That's awesome. And so help us. I'm going to get to the cheese questions, but
Yes.
what does the name, like, I like the name. It is a unique and strong brand, but how did you come up with that name and why that
Well,
name?
there's a fun story about it. So, Angela, again, she's American, and puns are like her forte. She loves puns. And the first time she told me about the name, I'm like, I don't get it. Because I thought it
Yeah.
was like not okay. Like, no, like nuts, like nuts. Like, ah. And because of that, we thought, well, we can use that as a kind of like tone of voice to, maybe build a brand that is not taking itself too serious, but at the same time can also deliver something amazing. So it all started like that, and every product we're like releasing has a pun in the name, or we're trying to make it
Hmm.
as fun as possible. Because at the time, and especially even right now, they're still trying a lot of brands to replicate
Hmm.
a specific cheese,
Yeah.
whether we always wanted to replicate the experience of eating cheese. So that nice,
Hmm.
mouthfeel, that flavor, but we didn't want to replicate the exact way maybe a camembert tastes and looks. We wanted to create
Yeah.
something different. And that's why we decided to focus on a brand that was quite unique and also flavor combination that was more stronger and bold than what the market was offering. As a matter of fact, one of the cheeses that's like one of our signature is
Hmm.
black truffle cheese. That's
Okay.
completely black, which is something you wouldn't find, in the dairy sector. And because of that, people started to recognize that we were doing something different and more unique.
Yeah. And so I have not gotten to taste these cheeses yet because they are across the pond from us here in America. But I do echo exactly what you said. The vegan cheese market was non-existent when I started this a long time ago, and then the the market has thoroughly blossomed, but it's still hit or miss with the cheeses. So, what do you think? How do you describe the taste and the flavor to these people, and what do you think sets your cheese apart from some of the others in the market?
I think one of the things that from day one kind of like, differentiate us from the rest was that when we had customers asking, "Oh, do you have something plain? Do you have something mild?" The answer was like, "No, we don't do anything plain. We
Hmm.
don't do anything mild." There's already a market for that. We wanted to really focus on flavor that were again more bold. So we have like a very smoked, sort of like cheddar style, because then at the end you still need to convey maybe what you're referring to.
Hmm.
We made a mozzarella that, for example, it doesn't just melt, but it melts really, really well. and it tastes right. It doesn't have that like plastic texture, that kind of like rubbery feeling. We wanted to create and deliver that, again, amazing mouthfeel experience that people will get by eating cheese. So the moment, especially because, yeah, going back for a second. So when we started trading, we were doing only farmers market every weekend. And that was the best
Yeah.
way for us to try our product because from the moment you make it at home and then you bring it to the market, as soon as you have someone sampling it and their reaction like, that's good, you know you're doing something right. And you know that maybe if you
Yeah.
want to experiment on a new flavor, we want to do something a bit more, you know, different and quirky, we can still bring it there. We can still, get someone's reaction. And maybe the American market is more open to it because we just came back from LA and I was, so amazed by all this like amazing flavor combination, having all these like
Yeah.
cultures living together and like really mixing, um, you know, all these like flavors compared to maybe the European market, which is a bit more safe and more linked to a cultural tradition.
Yeah.
So I think London sits a bit in between because it's still, that kind of like gate that opens up to Asia and American market and then also to Europe. So we were lucky at the time when we started to, have the right product at the right time and that we were doing also something different compared to what the market was already presenting.
That is awesome. So I am really looking forward to trying it. And people that are coming into the plant-based life don't really understand how addicting cheese is. Like I mean it literally has the drugs in it that gets you hooked, and that's one of like I think it's easier to give up the meat than it is to give up the cheese because the cheese is addicting on that front. So, like, how addictive is your cheese, and any thoughts for the people that are on that fence, just like you and I were probably in our journeys to like give up the cheese now and start embracing these plant-based alternatives?
I would say it's highly addictive because again, the real test is like we bring it up, people try it, and they're like, whether it's like a comment on Instagram, on Facebook, was like an email, was like a customer like in real life that's like raving about it and like wants to like recommend it to their friends. That's always been the sort of like feedback that gave us that motivation day by day to keep pushing and like keep building our brand. Because also let's not forget, you know building a business, it's tough. It's already like a crazy idea to
Yeah.
do it, but thanks to all the lovely customers that we have, and some of them turns into friends, some of them are like real ambassadors of our brand. We always felt really lucky and positively overwhelmed by all this like love and kind of like attitude of like really getting passion. And I think that yeah, we feel blessed with what we're doing. So it's always a new challenge for us to see what else can we do to to like shock them and bring something tastier and new to the market.
Yeah, everybody kind of knows what like the cheddar sounds like or the Gruyere or whatever. So like these new different flavor profiles can really open up someone's eyes to something new and different. So
I agree.
I mean, so I can totally see your like graphic design background leading in towards building a really strong, powerful brand. And then like I can't say enough to aspiring plant-based businesses that are watching this to do that customer discovery. Like go to the farmers markets, do whatever you need to do, because if they do echo the same sentiments you're feeling, then you're on to something. So thank you for sharing those couple moments and stuff. How do you sort of tackle the other sustainability and ethical considerations when you're doing the production and packaging and those aspects of your product?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I believe the first week that we started making cheese, we really needed to start ASAP. So we ordered, I think, a bunch of like plastic container, made the cheese, scoop it into the containers. But then after the first, day of trading, we realized that where we wanted to take the brand, the kind of like positioning in the market, the customers we were aspiring, weren't really aligned with the sort of like packaging choice that we went for. So quite fast we thought, I know it's cheap, I know we could have higher margins, but if we use plastic, but at the same time didn't really align with our values. So we immediately switched to like glass, way more labor intense because you need to like wash, sanitize. There's so many processes involved compared to just a pot of plastic that comes already ready to be used. But again, by making
Yeah.
that choice, by really sticking to what's our vision, we were able to then convey that message through the packaging, through the branding to our customers who then really appreciate it. And also at the very beginning, we had kind of like recycle scheme where when people could bring their like empty jars, we'll give them a discount so then we could reuse them. And that was
Cool.
one of the first choices that we made in